The auction block in the rain. The rain fell hard. It was cold. The streets were empty except for a few broken stalls and flickering lights. In the middle of the wet market square, a tall wooden platform stood. That was the auction block, where the unwanted were sold. Tonight, something strange was happening. A young alien woman stood on the block. Her skin was pale, her body thin. She wore a torn cloak, soaked through. Her eyes didn't look at the crowd. She kept them low, her hands tied in front. But anyone who looked closely could see it. She wasn't a slave. Not by birth. She put herself there. An old auctioneer with cracked lips and one metal leg shouted above the wind, "Here we have something different tonight. A volunteer, a widow, an alien mother." People in the crowd whispered. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. "She offered herself?" a voice asked. "She must be desperate," said another. In the crowd, a human man stood silently. He wore a long coat and had short brown hair. His name was Marcus. He had come to the alien district for parts, scrap for his workshop. He didn't expect this. But when he saw her, something in him stopped. She wasn't like the others on that block. The auctioneer went on. "She says she needs money. Not for herself, for her child. Starving, she says. Isn't that touching?" The crowd didn't laugh. They had heard too many sad stories. No one cared anymore. "Let's start the bidding. 5 credits. No one moved. 4. Still no one. "Come on," the old man snapped. "She's young, she's strong, and cheap." Still, the crowd stayed quiet. Marcus looked again. The alien woman's arms were shaking, from cold maybe, or fear, or both. But she didn't cry. She stood still, proud in a quiet, broken way. Something about her made him feel wrong. Not because of what she was, but because of what he saw. She wasn't trash. She was a mother, and she had chosen this. The auctioneer sighed. 3 credits? Few chuckled. 2? Silence again. 1? Marcus felt his hand rise before he could stop it. The auctioneer blinked. "We have a bid. 1 credit from the human." All heads turned. The alien woman didn't look up, but her fingers curled tighter. "No other bids?" the auctioneer asked. Someone in the back muttered, "She's not worth a crumb." "Sold," the auctioneer cried. "To the human. Lucky you." Marcus stepped forward. The rain beat down harder. He reached the edge of the platform where the woman still stood. She didn't speak. She didn't move. The auctioneer untied her wrists. She rubbed them slowly, still not looking at Marcus. "Take her," the old man said. "She's yours." Marcus nodded, took off his coat, and placed it around her shoulders. She flinched. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. Still, she said nothing. He guided her down from the platform. She walked like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Maybe longer. As they moved through the street, people stared, some with disgust, some with pity. He didn't care. When they reached the edge of the market, he stopped and asked gently, "What's your name?" Silence. He tried again. "Do you speak Galactic Common?" After a few moments, she whispered one word. "Valari." Her voice was dry, cracked, but soft. "All right, Valari," he said. "Let's get you somewhere warm." She looked up for the first time. Her eyes were not just tired. They were full of something deeper. Fear? Sadness? Hope? Maybe all 3. Marcus didn't ask any more questions. Not yet. He just kept walking, with the alien woman wrapped in his coat, the rain falling behind them like a curtain. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, because Valari hadn't come alone. Someone small, someone precious, was waiting for her, sold for survival. The door creaked open. Valari stepped inside first, slow, cautious. The man behind her, Marcus, stayed silent. He didn't rush her. His small workshop smelled of oil and warm bread. A folded blanket rested on the couch. A pot boiled gently on a rusted stove. Valari stood like a shadow, barely inside the room, dripping wet. She didn't sit. She didn't speak. Marcus gently closed the door behind them. The sound made her flinch. "You're safe here," he said. Still, she said nothing. He didn't press her. Instead, he grabbed a dry towel and left it near the heater. "You can change when you feel ready." Valari just stared at the corner of the room. Her feet didn't move, but her hands slowly slid into her soaked cloak, gently, carefully, as if hiding something. Marcus didn't notice. He walked to the stove, poured a hot drink into a mug, and brought it to her. When he offered it, Valari didn't take it at first, but then a soft, low sound came from under her cloak. A muffled whimper. Marcus froze. Valari looked up, her eyes wide. The cloak moved. Then, a tiny arm slipped out. Small, pale, alien. Marcus took a step back, shocked. Valari's voice came at last. Barely a whisper. "He hasn't eaten in 2 days." She opened her cloak fully, and there, clutched against her chest, was a small alien child. His eyes half open, his face pale, no older than 4 or 5 in human years. The child didn't cry. He was too weak. Marcus stared, speechless. "You brought him with you?" Valari nodded. "I couldn't leave him. I had no choice." Marcus felt like the air had left the room. All this time, she hadn't put herself up for sale just to survive. She'd done it so he could survive. She was willing to be owned, to be used, just to feed her son. Marcus swallowed hard and knelt down. "What's his name?" "Saron," she said softly. Marcus looked into the boy's eyes. They barely focused. He turned to the stove, grabbed a piece of bread, and brought it to her. "He needs it more than me," Valari said. Marcus shook his head. "You both eat. Now." She hesitated, but finally tore a piece and pressed it gently to Saron's lips. The boy ate slowly, then a little faster, then with shaking hands pulled it closer. Tears ran down Valari's cheeks. Not from sadness, from relief. Marcus stood back, watching. He had thought he was buying a broken woman. Instead, he had saved a mother and child. He had no plan. No idea what came next. He only knew one thing. He wasn't going to send them away. That night, Valari sat on the floor near the heater. Saron slept in her lap, wrapped in Marcus's old coat. "I was a translator, before the war," she finally said. Her voice was tired, but clearer now. "My mate died 2 winters ago. We hid, we ran, I sold everything, but it was never enough. Then someone told me about the auction market, that someone might pay." Marcus listened quietly. "I thought if I gave myself, they'd take him in, feed him, let him live." She looked at Saron. No one even bid. Marcus clenched his jaw. "I did." Valari looked up at him. "Why?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe because I'm human. Maybe because I saw someone worth more than a price tag." For the first time, Valari gave him something small, but powerful. A tiny, tired smile. Marcus stood and walked to his workbench. Valari held her child close, but in her mind, a strange thought bloomed. This man, this stranger, had bought her. But he hadn't touched her, hadn't ordered her, hadn't even asked her name until after. Could it be? Was he really just kind? As Saron snored softly in her arms, Valari whispered something no one else heard. "Maybe we were meant to find you." The hidden child. The night was quiet. Only the soft hum of old machines filled the room. The heater clicked now and then, pushing warm air across the cold metal floor. Marcus lay on his bedroll, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't sleep. His mind kept returning to her, Valari, and the small boy she hid under her cloak. He thought he had rescued one soul, but it was 2 lives. Both tied to each other, both broken, both trying to survive. He rolled onto his side. A dim lamp glowed in the next room. Valari was still awake, She sat on the floor near the wall, her legs folded. Her son, Saron, lay beside her on a pile of blankets, breathing soft and steady. She didn't speak. She just stared at him, as if afraid he might disappear if she blinked. Marcus watched from the doorway for a moment, then walked back to his bench, and stopped. There was something off. His tools. They'd been moved only a little. He stepped closer. A small piece of bread was missing too. Marcus knelt and checked under the bench. Nothing. He turned, and then heard it. A rustle from the far corner, the one behind the heater panels. He grabbed a flashlight, careful not to wake Valari, and aimed it into the shadowed space. Something small ducked behind the panel. He froze. Another child. Marcus looked back toward Valari, confused. She was still holding Saron. So who? He gently stepped closer, crouched, and called out, "Hey, I see you. It's okay, I won't hurt you." No answer. But then, slowly, a tiny head poked out. Eyes wide, skin gray-blue. Another child. Dirty. Thinner than Saron. Hands shaking and scared to death. Marcus whispered, "How long have you been hiding there?" The child didn't answer, just stared. Marcus set the flashlight down and held up both hands. "It's okay, I promise, you're safe now." A quiet voice came, trembling. "Mom said don't come out." Marcus's chest tightened. He kept his voice soft. "She meant for you to stay safe, but now I know you're here, and you don't have to hide anymore." The little one stepped out fully now. A girl, maybe 6, maybe older. It was hard to tell. Her bones showed through her skin. Her feet were bare. Marcus whispered, "Are you Valari's too?" The girl nodded. He took off his jacket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're freezing." Just then, Valari entered the room with panic in her eyes. "No." She gasped, rushing forward and pulling the girl close. No, I told you to stay hidden." "She's okay," Marcus said quickly. "She's not in trouble." Valari held the girl tight. The child buried her face in her mother's neck. Marcus stepped back to give them space. "You didn't tell me," he said after a long moment. Valari didn't look at him. "You bought one, not 3. Marcus frowned. "They're not products." "Valari," she whispered. "I didn't want to risk her. If someone found out I hid another child, they might have." She stopped, breathing hard. "I get it," Marcus said softly. "You did what you had to." He knelt beside the heater and pulled out another blanket. "What's her name?" Valari hesitated, then answered, "Navi." Marcus smiled at the girl. "Hello, Navi." The child said nothing. She just stared at him with large, unsure eyes. But Marcus didn't mind. It was enough. For now. That night, the room felt different. 3 blankets now lay in the corner. Saron and Navi both curled beside their mother. Valari still didn't trust him fully. But when Marcus left a cup of warm broth beside her, she whispered something low. "Thank you." He nodded. "Sleep. You're safe here." She watched him walk back to the other room, and for the first time since her mate died, since her world was destroyed, Valari let herself believe maybe not all humans were cruel. Maybe this one was something else. A stranger's warmth, the smell of food, woke her. Valari blinked in the dim light of early morning. The floor was warm beneath her. Her arms wrapped protectively around Navi and Saron. Both children were still asleep, their breathing calm and steady. It had been months since she last heard them sleep like that. Peacefully. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake them, and looked toward the kitchen corner. Marcus stood there humming quietly, flipping something in a hot pan. Eggs? Or some human food she didn't recognize. But it smelled good. Warm. Real. Valari didn't speak. She just watched him. He wasn't looking at her. He didn't expect thanks. He didn't ask for anything. He was just cooking. It confused her, Anawam. Every world she had visited after the war, kindness came with a price. A touch, a demand, a favor, but not from him. Why? Marcus turned and noticed her sitting up. "Good morning," he said, offering a small smile. Valari nodded. "Smells nice." He lifted a plate. "It's not much. Just eggs and starch cake, Earth-style breakfast." She stood slowly. Her legs were still weak. The warmth of the room made her feel dizzy, like she might cry again. But she didn't. She took the plate with both hands. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. "I know," Marcus said, "but I wanted to." She looked down at the food. "I don't understand." "Does it matter?" he asked softly. Valari didn't answer. But she sat slowly and began to eat. Later, Marcus handed small plates to the children. They ate quietly, eyes watching him, unsure if this was a trick. It wasn't. When Saran dropped his spoon, Marcus simply picked it up, wiped it clean, and handed it back without a word. No anger, no coldness, just care. That afternoon, Marcus led Valari into his workshop area. It was dusty but full of tools, wires, and old machines. "I fix scrap for trade," he explained. "It's not fancy, but it pays." Valari nodded, running her fingers over a broken part. "This is tech from Varna's sector." Marcus raised a brow. "You recognize it?" "I used to decode their trade signals," she said, "before everything fell apart." "You were a translator, right?" She nodded. Marcus handed her a small device. "If you can help me repair these signals, we could work together." Valari blinked. "You'd trust me with your trade?" Marcus shrugged. "Why not? You've already trusted me with something far more valuable, your children." Her hands trembled slightly as she took the device. She hadn't felt useful in a long time. That evening, Valari stood outside his home staring at the sky. It wasn't her sky. No twin moons. No blue stars, but it was quiet and safe. Marcus stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. "I rebuilt this place with scrap," he said. "Didn't think anyone else would ever live here." Valari looked at him. "Why help me?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "My sister died during the war. She had a daughter. No one helped them. I wasn't there in time. I guess I just don't want to be late again." Valari's breath caught in her throat. She understood that kind of pain, that kind of guilt. "I'm sorry," she said softly. He nodded. "Me too." They stood there in silence. Not strangers anymore. Not quite friends. Something in between. Later that night, Navy tugged on Valari's sleeve. "Mom," she whispered. "Is he a good man?" Valari didn't answer at first. She looked toward the next room where Marcus sat, tinkering with wires, soft music playing beside him. Then she smiled gently and said, "I think he's the first good man we've ever met." Her first smile. Laughter. It was soft at first, then louder, clear and full of life. Marcus looked up from his bench, tools in hand, and blinked in surprise. It came again. Laughter. Not from Valari. Not from Navy. It came from Saran. The little alien boy was sitting on the floor with a broken toy engine, one Marcus had set aside weeks ago. His small fingers pressed a button and it made a loud, funny noise that startled him. He had burst into laughter. It echoed across the room. Valari turned sharply, eyes wide, as if she couldn't believe it. Her son was laughing. A sound she hadn't heard in... She couldn't even remember. Marcus smiled. "Didn't know that old engine still worked." "It doesn't," Valari whispered. "But that noise, it surprised him." She dropped to her knees beside Saran and touched his face. He was still giggling, holding the toy up like a treasure. Valari's eyes shimmered, and then slowly, She smiled. Not a forced one, not a tired one, but a real, gentle smile. Warm. Alive. Marcus froze for a second. That smile. It changed her face. Completely. It wasn't just beautiful. It was human in a way no species could separate. He turned away, giving her a quiet moment. Later that day, Marcus brought out an old data pad with Earth songs. Music from 100 years ago. Simple, happy melodies. He hit play. A cheerful tune filled the room. Saran tilted his head, then began tapping his feet. Navy giggled. Valari stood by the heater, watching them sway and bounce. Marcus offered a hand toward her. Dance? She blinked. I don't remember how. Doesn't matter. Valari hesitated, then slowly placed her hand in his. They didn't dance much, just swayed side to side. Quiet, slow, but it was enough. In that small home, in a forgotten corner of a ruined world, a family was forming, not by blood, but by choice. As night came, Marcus helped Navy brush her hair, carefully, awkwardly, but trying. Valari sat beside Saran, feeding him warm broth. They spoke softly in their own language, a mix of galactic and whispers only a mother and child understood. Marcus watched them, and for the first time in years, he felt something he thought he'd lost long ago. Peace. But peace never lasts long. Outside, in the shadows beyond the scrap fence, 3 dark figures stood, watching, waiting. One of them tapped a communicator. She's alive, the voice said. The widow. She was supposed to be claimed, but the human took her. A pause. Yes, the children are with her. All of them. Another pause. Understood. We move soon. The signal ended, and the wind carried their footsteps back into the dark. Inside, Valari sat beside the heater, her eyes slowly closing. She didn't know. She couldn't feel it yet. But something was coming, and it would test everything they had built. They want. Her back, the alarm didn't go off. It was the silence that woke Marcus. The heater had stopped humming. He sat up, alert. Then he heard it, a soft tap against the outer door, metal on metal, not the wind, not the rain, a deliberate knock. He reached for his jacket and moved toward the entry. Outside, the sky was still dark, just before dawn. He opened the door a crack. 3 figures stood there, tall, uniformed, not human. Their armor bore the mark of the Council Recovery Patrol. Marcus knew what that meant. One of them stepped forward. Good morning, citizen, the lead alien said coldly. We're here for the property you purchased. Marcus narrowed his eyes. I didn't purchase property. I offered shelter. The alien ignored his words. The female and her young were registered as forfeit. She was not authorized to bring dependents. You do not have legal rights to all 3. Marcus's voice turned cold. They're people, not cargo. The soldier's eyes glowed faintly. You have one chance, human. Return the female and the children, or be charged with theft of council-controlled assets. Behind Marcus, Valari had woken. She stood in the hallway, clutching her children close. She had heard everything, her face drained of color. Navy whimpered softly. Marcus stepped fully outside, shutting the door behind him. Try anything, he said, voice steady. And I promise you, this won't go quietly. The soldiers laughed. What will you do? You're alone. One human against us? No, Marcus said. Then he raised his voice and shouted toward the street. They're here, trying to take them. For a moment, silence. Then windows opened. Doors creaked, eyes appeared in the dark. Other humans, old neighbors, shopkeepers, mechanics, scavengers. Some stepped out into the street. Others stayed in the shadows, but they saw. And more importantly, the soldiers saw them watching. The lead officer's smile faded. You're making this harder than it has to be. he growled. Marcus crossed his arms. Then leave. The alien stared at him, then at the growing number of people nearby. Finally, he muttered something in his language and turned. Fall back, he ordered. For now. They walked into the darkness, vanishing like ghosts. But Marcus knew it wasn't over. Inside, Valari was shaking. I told you they'd come, she said, voice cracking. They didn't take you, Marcus said gently. And they won't. She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. You don't understand, and the council doesn't stop. If they can't take me, they'll declare you a criminal. Your home, your life, ruined. He knelt beside her. I don't care. Valari's lips trembled. Why would you risk everything? For us? Marcus looked at her, calm and sure. Because I already lost my family once, I won't let it happen again. Not to anyone else. She stared at him, eyes wide. For the first time, she believed him, really believed him. That night she tucked the children in herself, then stood quietly by the heater. Marcus sat at the workbench, but he wasn't fixing anything. He was thinking. Valari walked to him. I should leave, she whispered. Marcus looked up, startled. What? If I leave, they might leave you alone. He stood quickly. No, you're not leaving. She looked down. Then we run. We prepare, he said. Valari's voice was soft but full of fire. Then I'll help. I'm not just a mother. I was a tactical translator in the war. I know their language, their ranks, their movements. I know how they think. Marcus nodded. For the first time since they met, they weren't just trying to survive anymore. They were going to fight back. Together. More than a rescue. The house was empty. For the first time in weeks, there was no sound of children laughing. No quiet hum from the heater. No clicking of tools from Marcus's workbench. Only silence. But outside, the world had changed. A message had spread. One human had stood up against council soldiers. One man had defended an alien widow and her children, not with weapons, but with courage. And others had seen it. 3 days later, the soldiers came back. This time with a warrant. They expected the house to be dark. They expected to take the woman and her children with force. But they didn't expect what they saw. The house surrounded by people, humans, aliens, traders, mechanics, elders, children. They stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Some held tools, others just empty hands. But their message was clear. You'll have to go through all of us. Inside the house, Valari watched through a small window. Her hands were wrapped around Navy and Saron. She whispered, I never thought I'd see this. Marcus stood behind her. They saw what I saw. A mother. A family. Not slaves. Valari turned to him. Her voice shook. Even if they leave, we'll never be safe. Not truly. Marcus nodded. Then we don't hide. He pulled out a small comm pad. I sent your story out, across the sector, across planets. You're not invisible anymore. Now everyone knows what they tried to do to you. Valari blinked in shock. You told my story? Marcus smiled. I didn't tell everything, just enough to make them look like monsters. The council officers hesitated. Their lead stared at the crowd. He saw faces of every kind, young, old, scarred, tired, but all standing for one woman and her children. He hissed into his communicator. The widow is more trouble than she's worth. Pull back. We'll deal with the human later. But the moment was already lost. Because one of the bystanders filmed it, streamed it, and soon, Valari's image, holding her 2 children, standing behind the man who protected her, spread across the stars. Later that evening, as the crowd faded and peace returned, Marcus sat on the roof with Valari beside him. The children slept safely inside. The stars blinked overhead. I never expected this, she whispered. Any of it. Marcus looked at her. Do you regret it? Coming to that auction block? She turned to him slowly. No. Because that's where I met you. A long pause. Then she added, voice softer than ever. And because of you, my children. Smile again. She placed her hand on his. I was ready to give myself up for them, but you gave us something more. Marcus's throat tightened. What's that? Valari looked him in the eyes. A future. He didn't kiss her that night. He didn't have to. The way she leaned her head on his shoulder, the way she finally closed her eyes without fear, it was enough. Because this wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of a new life, not as a protector and refugee, not as a man and an alien, but as something stronger, a family.